Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Gearing Up. I am Greg. If you are just catching up with us, this is the 4th episode in Season 2. If this is your first time listening, definitely go back and check out Season 1 and episodes 1 through 3. Normally, I'm joined with my wife, April, but today I have a bit of a special guest I'm actually really excited about. I am joined by Blaine from Cobalt Customs. Blaine, say hello.
Hello.
So, bit of a backstory, and then we'll kind of get to Cobalt Customs and what you do and all that stuff. But I actually recorded an episode with Rustic EDC. Hopefully, you guys have already listened to that one. But we were kind of talking about the history of the Maker series, and I know you went back and listened to some episodes of the podcast.
Yeah.
But when I first started the blog, Adam and Hope, Rustic EDC, they were one of the first ones I reached out to really kind of do this deep dive or really just a look into the companies, the people, the makers that are in the community. And so thought it would be interesting to take this into sort of an audio format, an interview format, and really just get to know a little bit more about you and what you do and all of that stuff. So that's a bit of a backstory on what this is. But the main thing today I wanted to talk about is Cobalt Customs. So for the folks that are listening that have no interest in knives, or number one, what are you doing here? But you know, the folks that maybe don't know who you are or what you do, can you just give me like an overview of Cobalt Customs and, you know, who you are, where it started, how it got where it is, all that?
Well, I mean, it started, I'd say back 2014. I was actually a knife modder. I'm not real proud of that, you know.
What's that?
I don't know. It's just now that, you know, I have knives out there, I don't like people modding my knives. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm
fair.
Not real proud of it, but you know, you got to start somewhere, and that's pretty much what I did, and it just evolved from there. It's a passion. You got to want to do it, and I did, and luckily I had a lot of people in my corner that helped me along the way.
Yeah, so that's one thing I did want to ask about. I did some deep diving on your Instagram account, and that's how I found out about you. There's some makers that we're going to talk to later in the series that I actually went, you know, just online, Google, just tried to find some Texas knife makers, and I'm sure once we're done with this, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more on some that you know that may be in the area. But I found you on Instagram. You have a large following, I would say huge following, just comparatively when you look at some other folks in the community. But I went back and I did kind of a deep dive in your history, and I kind of watched the progression, and I wanted to ask you about who those makers were that kind of helped you get started and get moving, and who kind of taught you the tricks of the trade.
Well, I mean, one of the very first makers that I ever reached out to was Jeff, Tough Thumbs, Tough Knives. He was the first because I had one of his switches, and I did something to the backspacer. You know, I wasn't even modding anything, and I messed it up. Uh-huh. And I didn't want to send it in to him, and he kind of told me, hey, this is what you need to do.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of, that's where it all started. And then I've actually fixed it. I was like, wow, man, I fixed it. It looks good. And it went from there, and I you know, reached out to other makers in the area. Robert Carter was the next. Mm-hmm. Went and hung out with him for a little bit. He taught me a lot. Robert taught me a lot. And I don't know if you know who Robert is, mm-hmm. or his character or how he is, but you know, he's a little rough around the edges, but to say the least. But yeah, he taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Tim Curry taught me a lot.
Yeah, he's got some amazing work out there.
Yeah, he was another one. And then of course now, you know, I hang out more with Colin from Rad Knives.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Colin. Yeah. His page lately, he's been posting some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
so it's awesome to see what he's working out. Cool. So I kind of know the answer to this, or at least I think I do, but I'm hoping you can correct me if I'm wrong. How long ago did you make your very first actual knife, you know, start to finish?
Folder or fixed blade?
You started with fixed blades.
So
let's go there. When was your first fixed blade?
Man, I'm gonna say back in 2015.
Okay.
After I got my grinder.
That's amazing to me that in 3 to 4 years you've gone from tinkering and not tinkering, but just tinkering. A basic fixed blade to some of the stuff that you've put out more recently. So it's crazy to see. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording. You don't do any everything you do is by hand. All your parts and stuff are made by hand.
I have water jetted before, but you know, I can't do CAD work.
Okay.
So some of the first, the Shepherds, some of those, and some of the first pups were water jetted.
Okay.
I actually got Eric Luther to write the file for me.
Nice. Very cool. So first fixed blade, you said about 2015. What about your first folder?
It'd have to be right around 15, 16, something like that.
Crazy. Again, it just blows my mind when you think about going from collecting, being in the hobby, tinkering, getting an actual fixed blade made. And I went and looked back at some of the ones that you made with some really cool scales. And again, they were just awesome looking fixed blades. And then you kind of progress into folders, and for that to only take, a year and a half. I mean, that's some talent, that's some dedication. I think it's a combination of
dedication
the right
and, it's like I said, I had good people in my corner.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people to help.
Absolutely. Cool. So you said you had a knife, and there was a little bit of an issue and you were able to fix it and you're like, that's kind of cool. But like, what got you into, I guess more broadly, the hobby, and then even more so, what got you into the actual making of knives?
Well, I mean, I've always used a knife. I've always pretty much, done manual labor my entire life.
Okay.
And I've had to have a knife, out in the field, cut things and do things. Even as a little kid, I remember, my dad giving us Christmas money. It was a single father. Here's $100. Let's go to the flea market.
Right.
Me and my brother would go buy nunchucks and Chinese stars.
There's always nunchucks at flea markets.
Rambo knives with the compass on it and the matches and everything. Yeah, we had boot knives. We had all that stuff growing up. I lived behind a bayou, so I mean, I've always had a fascination with knives.
Okay,
up.
You said live by. So you're originally from the area?
No, Pasadena.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So very cool. This is a question I don't know this answer. This is more for me, but I guess the people listening too. But is knife making your only thing right now? Do you have a day job that you go back?
No, I'm a full-time maker.
Full-time knife maker. That to me, and again, this is just to anybody listening that likes to tinker in a garage or mess around in a shop or to the folks just getting into the hobby. It's crazy if you looked back 5 years ago, would you have seen yourself
no way
not working a day job or whatever you were doing and coming into just knife making?
No, there's no way I would have ever. And that's another thing too about being a knife maker. Every knife maker you see out there, either they're financially stable themselves before they were a knife maker, or they have one of the best damn women on their side for them to do it, because there's no way I would have ever been able to do this without my wife. Right.
That's awesome to hear. Cool. So we talked a little bit about Cobalt Customs and how you went from modding to fixed blades to folders. What, I don't know how to ask this question 100%, so I kind of just jotted down some random notes because I kind of had this thought in my head. What from modding / making basic fixed blades to what you make now? You showed me a knife that's kind of in the middle stages. What were some of the bigger leaps that you saw in learning? What was it you learned how to do that was just like, oh, this took it to the next level? Does that question make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, it makes sense. Probably grinding. Okay. Yeah, grinding was probably one of the hardest things for me. Just to get everything symmetrical, to get everything straight, plunges, that stuff didn't come easy to me.
Went through a lot of
messed up a lot material, of steel. Yeah.
So before we started recording, you brought a few knives, but I have to ask, whether it's here or once you left at home, what's your collection like? What do you keep? I know you said before we started recording, it's a lot. They're tools, they're users. So I'm guessing there's not, the term safe queen gets thrown around a lot in the community with these full dress knives. Right. I'm guessing there's probably none or not a lot of those in your collection.
I have none.
What do you keep in the collection that sees a lot of pocket time?
A lot of pocket. Well, my shop knife is actually a Robert Carter Cricket.
Right on.
Yeah, with his Rob Maskus on it.
That's cool.
That's my shop knife. I don't think Robert knows that, but yeah, it's in the shop all the time.
Right on.
And then what I carry a lot, I don't even think I brought it, was a JRP, Jared Knife and Tool. So I can't remember everybody's name.
Right.
One of his knives is pretty cool that I carry quite a bit. And then I just made a new model that I carried for a while, and I left it at the house too. But that new model, I've been carrying that a lot just to really test it out and see what it's like.
Yeah, that's cool. It's crazy to see what, I've met up with other collectors and seen what they have, and my collection is not. I would say I'm still fairly wet behind the ears when it comes to collecting and customs and all of that stuff. But my collection's it's not anything crazy. But I try to like keep it fresh, and I do buy and sell a lot, and I've seen some of your stuff come up and on the secondary, and it's always gone super quick.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
That's
to
a
see
good
that.
thing.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to materials, I know you said you do everything by hand. You don't do any like water jetting or anything anymore. What is you would say your favorite material to work with?
Titanium.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I like titanium. I like micarta. I mean, I don't mind working with any material except for no, I take that back. Except for those mammoth tooth. Oh my gosh, that stuff is horrible. I'm working on one now with the radius bolsters on it, and it chipped, and I went through the whole piece, and I actually have another piece coming in. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, that's rough. What do you think? So material wise, we talked about this a second ago, a little bit before we started. We were talking about kind of trends you're seeing. What are some trends you're seeing in the industry, in the community that you're fond of, you like? What do you like to see going on?
What I like to see going on is I mean, I like to see my knives out there.
Right.
Other than that, to tell you the truth, I don't pay attention to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't respond a lot. I don't like a lot. I look at things, but there's not a lot of times that I'll really respond.
Okay.
And I've kind of been called out on that before. A guy did a review on one of my knives on my my Woodrow model,
mm-hmm.
and he had said in the YouTube review that he's not a real vocal maker. He doesn't say a lot, and it's kind of me doing this podcast even is kind of weird. I'm not that kind of guy.
I was very, very excited that you listened and that you said, yeah, I'll come out and talk, and it's crazy that to me, and I don't know. I know you said you've talked to Colin a lot, and I don't know him. I know, but he's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I put you guys a lot of the time in that same category of just really crazy, awesome work, and there's not a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's offensive. I think it's just kind of who you guys are, and it doesn't.
I think so.
Doesn't bother me, and I don't take it personally. I just like the knives,
Yeah.
I think they look cool. So, very nice. Good. So, what do you see in the knife community that you don't like so much? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
All the bitching, all the complaining. I mean,
what is the complaint you get the most?
For me myself?
Or just in general, what do you see people upset about?
Oh, just what other people are doing and how they're doing it, and what they're putting on their Instagram page, and what they're saying, how they're doing it. It's just
everybody's got something to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, if people would, look, man, it's your Instagram page. Conduct it however you want. If you don't like it, leave.
Yeah, you can unfollow people.
Right.
It's very easy.
People come from all different walks of life, and they do things different. They've grown up different ways.
Yep.
They're gonna do things different than you.
Yeah.
You can't always bitch about it.
Absolutely. And I've been using this feature a lot. Somebody I like, but maybe they're getting annoying. You can mute stories and posts now.
Right.
So it's awesome. I don't have to unfollow you. Maybe I don't want to unfollow you, but I can at least get you off my feed.
Right.
But no, I think if it gets to that point, you just get rid of them. So you talked a little bit about collaboration before we started, and one of the things that I try to dig into with the Maker series, because I find that this is a pretty common thing. It's collaborations in the community are all over the place. Makers love to work together. I know you said you learned a lot from some of the more prominent makers in the community, and just seeing folks work. Number one, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome to see people that are willing to work together and help one another. I mean, it's I feel like there aren't a lot of communities or industries that do that really build everybody up instead of kind of chasing the money themselves. So what are some of, your favorite collaborations, or what are you most proud of collaboration wise?
Well, for me, I've only had two. So
okay.
I've had, one with Colin and then one with Tim.
Okay.
So
talk about those.
I'm not going to pick. I'm not going to pick. No.
Definitely don't pick a favorite. That's fine. But walk me through what were some of the challenges you guys ran into collaborating, and what were some of your favorite things about working with those other makers?
With Tim, it was pretty easy. He just, I sent it off to him, and I came up with the concept of the knife and the materials, and then sent it to him, and he finished it.
Nice.
And it's pretty much, my idea, his finished work.
Like it.
With Colin, we actually used some of his material and the blade material I had, but we pretty much finished that one together.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, he did a lot of the work, but I mean, we pretty much finished it together.
Yeah, that's cool. I like hearing about that. If you had to pick a favorite knife that you've made, what was the one that you were like, this is it, I'm the most proud of this one? Yep,
I got it.
What is it?
There's one, and it actually just got sold from the original owner, and it's a pup with Mokutai frames and black tie or just black and tie collars. I love that knife.
Yeah.
I don't know why. After I finished that knife, I knew, there was something special about it.
You ever think about making one for yourself?
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do with it? I can do it any time.
You could, yeah, yeah. It's a different perspective when you're a maker.
It's kind of like the guy that wants the lake in the backyard so you can go fish in it.
Yep.
And then he gets it and he doesn't fish.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with making knives.
I like that. That's a great analogy. That's awesome. So you've mentioned a few different models, the pup, and a few others. How many different models do you currently make versus, I know you've had several different models that maybe there's some you don't make anymore, but how many do you currently try to focus on, and overall what models exist?
There's about 4 that I'm focusing on now. It's the pup. I mean, that one's just, I credit the pup to putting me on the map. That was the one Beautiful. That everybody wanted.
Yeah.
And there's that one. No, I take that back. There's more. There's that one, the Woodrow, and the Jackson.
I've seen a few Jacksons.
The Jacksons are pretty nice. Yeah. It's almost like a larger pup is what it is. And then my new model that just came out called the Sug. I don't know if you know this or not, but everything that I do is named after dogs.
So I had it in my notes.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask what the correlation is there.
Because, I started out, one of the first fixed blades I ever made was called the Hinto.
Okay.
And it was a Japanese-inspired knife, I thought it was cool. The handle was kind of weird, and I had a few people question me on that, but I thought it fit. I do everything that works for me.
Right.
It's not going to work for everybody else.
Sure.
But, it's the Hinto was so hard to come up with because I wanted an original name, and you don't want to copy anybody.
Right.
And now that I name everything after dogs, I mean, Cobalt Customs, Cobalt is my Great Dane.
Right on.
So I mean, everything. Woodrow was a boxer that I owned for a little bit. That was my mother-in-law's dog. He died. The Sug that I just made, that's made after Gus, my mother-in-law's dog that just died. All of them. Jackson is my lab. This new one I can't come up with a name for.
Yeah.
I was going to call it the K9, just K and the number 9.
Yeah.
But then I was listening to another podcast, and I guess Tom Crine has a K9 line.
Yes, that sounds right. I'm not super familiar with his work, but I've seen a few. I've seen a lot of his regrinds. And that sounds right. That's cool. I like that though. It's cool that there is some kind of meaning attached. I see a lot of makers throw out random names, and I mean, it is what it is. Again, names aren't offensive. It's is it a cool knife? Does it work? I don't care what it's called.
For me, it's the worst part of knife making.
That's funny to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I wanted to talk a little bit. I mentioned your collection and what it's like now, but I wanted to, like I said earlier, I took a deep dive into your Instagram, and I went all the way back, as far back as I could go, to like 2014, I think it was. And it was cool to see kind of how not only the knife making evolved, but your collection. I saw a lot of mid-techs and a lot of there was some bruise blades. Is that how you say it?
Browse
blades.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw some of those. A lot of Chavez for a little while.
Yeah.
Are any of those still around? Do you keep any production knives around?
I have some Brouses.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a Terzola.
Okay.
The mid-tech that he made.
Uh-huh.
I have that one. Brian Nadeau's, I have one of his. Mm-hmm. The one that he just came out with.
Right on.
And production, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Very cool. One thing I wanted to talk about, I was interested in your perspective on this as someone that doesn't do any water jetting and kind of makes everything by hand. And what are your thoughts on this trend? So we did an episode, I don't know if you listened to it or remember it. If you did, we talked about like some pet peeves. And one of the things that I kind of halfway take it back, but I still kind of feel this way. There is a big trend right now with a lot of folks in the community that you've got these makers that are cranking out some really badass stuff, and then a company like We Knives comes along,
right,
or a company like Mass Drop comes along, and they do like a We Knives built production knife from these designers. And you can be as blunt as you want or not, but what are your thoughts on something like that? Does it take away from the maker? Does it add to it? Does it depend?
Yeah, it's, I can only speak for myself.
Right.
I don't want to speak for other makers and what position they're in or why they thought of doing it.
Right.
I actually almost did it once, and I'll tell you a little story about that because I want everyone to know this.
Okay.
But, it just depends on the situation they're in. If they think it's going to help them, you got to look at it this way. Being a knife maker and doing it on your own, there's no one there telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, right? So you kind of have a bunch of jobs.
Yep.
Because you have to be, social. You have to be, you have to promote yourself. You have to advertise. You have to do good work so that people will want it. And, every little mistake or turn you make or decision you make is going to affect you. Yeah. So I don't know what's right for them when they're doing it.
That's fair.
But a lot of these guys, sure, they're, We Knives and all those guys are doing great work, but I can't really say for what another maker does or why they would want to do it.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, I just, for me, there's some makers where, not makers in particular, I won't say makers or designers specifically, but like I've just seen a lot where some will do it every now and then some seem like they're cranking out a new one every week.
Yeah.
And to me, that, I don't know, that's kind of been the differentiator for me. We were talking about Ray's knives, and I had a chance to look at the Mass Drop one that he did. Fit and finish was great. I think they did a good job on it, and the design was awesome. But there have been some Mass Drop collaborations that I've handled, and some We Knives collaborations that I've handled, and it's hit or miss. There's some that are really great, and some that, I don't know if it was a cash grab or what. So no, I thought it was interesting. I just wanted to get your perspective.
Well, a lot of a lot of that too is. You have different guys in the community that want different things. Sure. There's guys that like the custom knives and that the makers actually touched and, did his work too. And then you have the guys that like the, I don't want to say Spyderco guys, but the guys that like that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's from that company and that's what they do. Yeah. Custom is just completely different. Yeah. It's got a different feel to it.
Absolutely. After I don't own many customs, but after actually, getting my hands on it and going through that process, I can see it is night and day. It's different, and I think it's a different knife, and I think it's a different preference. And
yeah,
I don't know. I think once you go down that path, then it's hard to
right.
It's hard to turn around, and it's a gateway. So I don't know if you still do this. I didn't go look. I was looking on your Instagram and I saw that you did some YouTube videos.
Yes.
So I stopped there. I just saw the post on Instagram. I didn't actually go to YouTube and check any of them out.
I have to remember what those are about.
You know, I feel like some of them were reviews. I don't know for
think
sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, how long's it been since you did that? Do you remember?
Oh, it's been a long time.
Long time. Is that something you'd ever have any interest in doing?
Absolutely not.
No? No overview videos or anything like that?
No. I need to go delete those if I can.
Right.
I don't know if you can. Can you delete stuff off YouTube?
I think so. Cool. So what, I know you said you're working on a knife right now and you're working on trying to get a name. Do you have any other designs in the works that you want to talk about?
I'm always drawn and thinking of new designs. You know, I mean, it's like pretty much the model that I showed you, the SUG. That was, man, I talked to Colin about that model for at least a year.
Yeah.
That I've been wanting to do something like that. So, I mean, it's always there. You're always thinking of new stuff and different. My whole thing is I just want to be unique. I don't want anyone to really, for me to come up with a knife and say, hey, that looks like this knife. But a lot of the stuff that goes on in the knife community with these guys saying, you copied me, you did this, we're all copying each other.
Oh, for sure.
This is what it is.
Oh, for sure.
You look at any painting, anything that anybody's done, they've been influenced by somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So all these knife makers, every one of my knives that I make has been influenced by somebody else.
Oh, without it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can learn a craft without imitating, whether it's intentional or not. I think more times than not, it's not even intentional. It's just obviously you learn. So I've played guitar for I don't know, like 15 years now. And I'm a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Yeah,
I'll be damned if I don't pick up a guitar and just throw down some blues licks because that's
and
what
copy
I like.
Stevie Ray Vaughan
and sound just like him.
Right.
Not just like him. I don't think I'm that good, but I mean, I think that's understandable. That's normal. That's excusable or believable or expected to some degree, I think.
Yeah.
So we talked about all the models that you've got, what you're working on now. I mean, one thing that I'm curious about, kind of going back to that idea of, you and a couple other makers just don't communicate a lot, don't post a ton. I'm curious, this is more just a question for me, but like, how many knives do you make and put out in a year's time?
It just depends. It depends on what happens, It's like the year before we flooded. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that put a damper on everything.
Sure.
And then I've had some stuff go on this year that's kind of, the beginning of last year. It's already 2019, so I got to think back.
I know.
So it was a year before we flooded. And then last year, I had a few things go on and it just didn't happen as much as I wanted to. But I'd say roughly 30, 40.
That's awesome. I mean, it's again, to me, I'm just, as someone that's, again, fairly new to the hobby. I mean, I guess I've been interested in a long time, but someone that's really in the last year or so taken a deep dive. It's crazy to see someone take in 5 years and build up something like that, where you can go from having a day job and just tinkering to, I make 30 knives a year and I get to do what I love and I get to meet some of the coolest people and work with all this crazy material. A lot to do with it, no doubt.
All these stars have to line up.
So you mentioned flooding, and this is something that I don't know that Adam and I talked about this on the episode really, but for those that don't know, this is all Houston area. That's where I am. That's where we are. And so Hurricane Harvey was a big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were affected. And so I know I just off recording, Adam and I had talked about, he had messaged you and you guys had kind of talked about, the impact that had. So, I mean, is that something that you're still dealing with? Are you fully recovered from all of that? Shop's good?
Everything's recovered, yeah.
That's awesome.
Everything's been rebuilt. Everything's back to normal. But just to clarify, Hurricane Harvey didn't hit me.
Okay.
I'm further south.
Okay.
So I'm down by the water. by the Gulf. So everything that's up here in Houston area has got to go to the Gulf.
Yep.
So a week after Harvey hit and everything flooded in Houston, a week later, I get it.
That, you know, and that's crazy because I'm from where you're at originally.
Yeah.
I'm from down, you know, a little bit further south of Houston, a little bit closer to the Gulf. And yeah, I mean, people don't think about that when those, you know, storms hit. Yeah, everything does have to come down there. So it's crazy that, yeah, even though it wasn't the hurricane, just indirectly it just threw you for a loop. And I know that impacted the shop and work times and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, which of course that I guess one of the benefits of being your own boss and a full-time maker. I mean, you can kind of prioritize and work around that.
Yeah.
It's awesome that the shop's all back up, and I'm just excited to see the new model and all the stuff that you're cranking out, and I think it's cool to watch all of that stuff come to life. So, you know, I tried to come up with a bunch more questions, and everything really just kind of kept coming back around to the work that you do, the work that you've done, and kind of what you want to do. So I guess one of the last questions or talking points that I had was, what do you hope to see / do / make in the next year or so? Like, what do you really, what's the goal? Is just keep making knives? Is there any big point specifically you want to hit?
Well, I've been wanting to do a slip joint for a long time.
Oh God, please, can I get on that list?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do a slip joint for a long time, and it just hasn't happened. It's like the folders come and you get excited about that, and you want the new model, and it's just like you have to take so much time out to go and, you know, work on the spring and, you know, get all your heat treating right. It's like now I know how to do what I'm doing. Yeah. It's to learn something else in between that.
Venture out, yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
Okay, so this is an interesting segue. So Adam and I talked about this. Kind of the more that I'm into knives, and we've seen this shift. Blade HQ just posted a video yesterday or the day before with Jared Ozer, who I don't know if you've seen, like incredible work on slip joints.
Yeah, they look
nice. They walked through from like the $20 mark all the way up to like the $300 or $400 mark, kind of in the production end, and then they showed off some of his. But they were just talking about the more modern traditional slip joints, and so it's interesting to me that has become one kind of a trend. Not that it was ever not a trend, but like slip joints have always been around, but it seems like they're gaining a lot of popularity, at least from my perspective. So it's interesting to hear a maker want to, you know, hey, I want to switch gears completely and do a slip joint. So the first person that came to mind when you said that is Tony Nickel Knives. Yeah. He went, you know, his fixed blades are insane. I've had the chance to own a couple of them, and they're always really nice. And then he started kind of dabbling in slip joints, and there's a few others that have done the same. You've got guys like Pena that are putting out some really, really nice knives. So it's interesting that you say you've wanted to try a slip joint. What's kind of pushing you in that direction? Do you know, is it just something new, a challenge, or
smaller's hot? Yeah. You know, smaller's the thing, you know. I mean, even me, I want a smaller knife in my pocket. Yeah. You know, it's just I think that's what happened is everyone had these, you know, 2-3 years ago it was these big huge
tactical folders.
Yeah, man, I want weight in my pocket, you know.
we talked about I had a cleaver phase for a minute, and that just get rid of those giant chunky blades.
I think little light is in. I think that's what everyone's going to, and you know, that's what I would carry.
That's good to hear. So that's cool. I would be excited to see something like that. I think the longer that I collect and experience different knives, I kind of get some preferences, and once I know what I like and how I like it to work, and then I say, well, you know, and to your point, smaller is becoming very popular, and so I could see that 100%. That's awesome. Yeah, slip joint. So anything else, or is the slip joint just kind of back of your mind, something you'd want to do?
No, I mean, you know, I've always thought of a new way to lock a knife, and you know, I always think about it. I'm not saying that I'm coming up with something new, right? But I've always thought of it. I want to try to come up with something of my own, a new way to do it. A new way to do it.
I'd love to see something like that. I think that, and again, this is a spend more time tinkering with knives. Frame locks,
Right.
tried and true, and a lot. I think most of the custom makers that I see are doing frame locks. Some of them still do liner locks from time to time, but not a lot. But you've got your Benchmades, your Axis locks, your compression locks.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what you come up with if you get to tinkering. I'd like to see what comes out of that. Very cool. So that's all. I don't have anything else. Is there anything you wanted to say or make a point of or rant about or talk about? I'm down for whatever. We can keep this going.
Yeah, I can go for a couple things.
What do you got?
Okay, so I was going to talk earlier about the production pup.
Okay.
So right before the flood, I was contacted. I'm not going to say the company's name.
That's fine.
Right before the flood, I was contacted and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a pup.
Mm-hmm.
Run 500 of them, produce them, and get them out there." And I didn't contact anybody. They contacted me, and I was like, "Cool, let's do it." Wrote up the contract, did everything we needed to do. Flooded. I was supposed to send him a model.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making it. When it flooded, so got back. Let everything air out a little bit and went and finished the model, hurried up, finished it, and sent it in to him. So he's got it. About 3 weeks later, he emails me and says, "Hey, can you call?" or whatever. So anyway, I got in contact with him and called him on the phone. He said, "Hey, we can't make this model." And I said, "Why not?" He says, "Well, everyone that I sent it off to said it looks just like the Voxnays pillar."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "You're kidding." "No, it looks like the pillar. They won't touch it." You knew what this knife was before you ever contacted me.
Right.
So basically, he didn't want to do it.
What did you expect? Yeah.
Right. He didn't want to do it. And he didn't want to tell me, didn't want to back out of it or whatever. So that kind of put a sour taste in my mouth with the whole production thing.
I could see that. I mean, that's an interesting perspective that someone that's not on the maker side of it could hear. Because you wonder why, hey, why I see this guy, he's doing it. Why hasn't this guy done it? I want to, I mean, look, when you say production pup and I know, so I recently got the Slim from Matt Berg, his Wii production, and crazy fit and finish, love the knife, but he's done some really interesting things with kind of the 3 different finishes, if you want to call them that. There's the green micarta, the brown micarta, and the plain titanium, and then he's even got the Damascus upgrade kits, and seeing things like that as a collector or a consumer on my end, I'm like, that's cool. That's what I like to see. A little bit of flair, not too out there.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, hey, production pup, and it's going to have this option or that option, I mean, like, my eyes light up. And I know that there's a ton of followers that would do the same, but that's an interesting perspective to hear about that experience and that process. And I don't want to liken it to politics, but the politics of a production run of knives. I mean, there's things that some folks don't think about. So
yeah, it's
very interesting.
Coming from a collector side where I was, and then being a maker, it's 2 different sides. You view everything completely different.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a lot of things are difficult. There's a lot of things to get, the ball rolling to make this happen, and it's not always easy.
Yeah. That's crazy.
You want to appeal to the masses, but
for sure. Yeah,
easy.
I think you have to strike a balance though between appealing to the masses and kind of staying true to your designs and what you are. And I don't know, to me that just sounds like you said, it kind of sounds like a cop out. That's it. I don't want to do it. Interesting. Well, good story. Anything else?
No, it's just for anyone that wants to start making knives. I see a lot of new makers that are getting off into folders and doing everything. I would even fix blades. Anyone that wants to grind anything and put their name on it and say they made it and sell it for any kind of money, it's not easy.
No, yeah, it's
not easy. If you're going to do it, you better be prepared to be disappointed.
Yeah,
and you can't quit. That's the whole thing with me. Was there were so many disappointments in the beginning, and it was difficult. Even to this day, I can make a beautiful knife and look at it and love it, but it's still, once I put it in that box and I take it to the post office, it's like all these things go through my head. Is the guy that bought it, that paid this amount of money for it, is he going to like it?
Yeah.
Is the detent too soft? Is the detent too hard? Does he like where the lock's sitting? And I've kind of coined this phrase, and I've said it to other people, is I call the knife community and custom knives in particular, it's the Goldilocks effect. You know, it's like the three bears.
Yep.
This bed's too soft, this bed's, too hard, this one's just right. That's what a custom knife is.
Yeah.
I can make a custom knife to my liking and how I would want it to be, but once it gets in the owner's hands, who knows what they're gonna like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some folks post not about Cobalt stuff, but other customs where they're like, man, I'm just disappointed, and that's something that I've learned, in just buying knives, whether they're custom or higher end production.
Yeah.
There's some knives that I'm gonna love it. This thing's gonna be amazing. This is a lifer, and then I get it, and it's a little bit of a letdown. And then there's some knives like, the knife that comes to mind for me is like a small Sabenza.
Yeah.
Never really cared for them. Ordered one, got it, loved it. I thought it was a great fit and finish. It was a great fit for me, and I really liked it. And then there's some people that will still, turn their nose up at it. Yeah. It's not for me, and that's fine. There's a lot of variation, and fortunately, there are a ton of makers, and there's a lot of different styles. So
right, there's something out there for everyone.
Yeah, and I like that you say, there's be prepared to be disappointed. Yeah, I mean, I look at. Trying to think of a knife maker that I have watched. There's not a knife maker, but I've seen other, whether it's an EDC tool or an opener or something to that liking. I've seen some people that will make something kind of, it almost seems like hey, I'm just doing it because that seems like what the community wants. Right. And then I watch them struggle. And then there's some folks that crank out a new design and it sells like hotcakes. And so I think it's a lot of perseverance. It's a lot of disappointment.
A lot, yeah.
But no, I mean, it's cool to see that, even with running into challenges. And I mean, to me, I hear that story about, a company wanting to do a production run and then kind of backing out of it. Like that would be a huge blow to my ego if that's who I was, And so to see you run into those challenges and still stick with it and keep cranking out these insane looking knives, like it's cool. It's cool. So anybody that's listening that is on the fence about, I don't know, you can't half-ass it.
Right.
You got to go at it 100%. But I think once you do,
the payoff is, I think too that a lot of people think that, these custom knife makers make a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into, materials and everything that you need. It's insane what you have to buy.
So that's an interesting point. And I want to say that, number one, for all the people that are listening that are not like knife heads, I don't know if that's even a term that people use, knife heads, but whatever. But, I look at, Rad Knives, right? I watch his auctions I grab the popcorn. Like it's the stuff that he puts out is crazy. Yeah. And when I I'm the knife guy at work. Not that I'm, to any degree, but like somebody needs a sharpening or something, I get their knives. And they'll come into my office and I'll have, a picture pulled up or something on my desk and they'll look at it. How much is it? And we start talking about price and people that don't know are blown away. And I think two things happen. The more you're into it, you start to understand what you were saying, where it's material. Time isn't free.
Right.
I mean, it costs money to spend a day out in the shop.
But also the time, when you say time, a knife maker's time, that's the time that he spent in building that knife, but it's the time that he used to learn how to build that knife. That's the thing, is all those upsets and all those things that didn't go right and all those, miscalculations and all that waste and trash and, things that you did to get there to make that knife. That's all part of it.
Yeah. It's more than just, the 100 hours or whatever you put into the knife. Yeah. I mean, it's a build-up. And I also think that the more you're in the community or the hobby, the more you kind of justify those things.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sounds crazy or not, but my daily carry for God knows how long until I started kind of I think I carried like a Kershaw for, I don't know, years. I didn't care. It was a $40, $60 knife, and it worked, and it did the job. I mean, it worked retail. I opened cardboard boxes, so, it did the job. But then you start, well, this is a little bit nicer. and as someone that started, by no means great at it, but like just sharpening knives.
Yeah.
That's a task, and you start kind of seeing. I had the chance to resharpen a buddy's. He had a pair of 3 crewware, and just noticing what different steels sharpen better.
Right.
It's those little tiny things that make a huge difference. And I think that all kind of goes into that idea of a premium material custom knife and kind of justifying that higher price tag. So I don't know. I don't think it's crazy, but I'm sure my wife will listen back to this and roll her eyes.
Hey, the wives never get it. They never will. Mine never did. No. She never understood what it was about or why you were doing it or why you needed to have it.
Yeah.
But of course, she needed her shoes.
Oh God,
and her purses.
Oh, trust me, the purse that's my like. She's like, why did you buy another knife? I'm like, you bought a purse.
Yeah,
that purse is expensive. That's my go-to. Cool. Well, I appreciate the talk. I appreciate the insight. This has been insanely interesting to me. I was excited to just get to sit down and talk gear with another person. The fact that it's an insane knife maker. I've followed your work for a while. And then when I saw you were from kind of the same area, I was like, like I think I even remember I messaged you when I first found you and I saw where you were based. You're based out of Lake Jackson. I was like that.
Yeah.
Like I worked at the Best Buy in Lake Jackson 6 years ago or however long ago it was, 8 years ago. Like that just, I don't know, small world. And so it's been insanely entertaining. I love this. I appreciate you coming out and spending 45 minutes an hour just shooting the breeze. Is there anything before we close? Is there anything else you want to say? You want to leave off with?
No, there's not. That's pretty much it. Nothing else I could really say.
Covered a lot today. So, first off, Blaine, I appreciate you coming out and chatting with me and giving a little bit of insight into Cobalt Customs and what you do, and just kind of talking about the community and what's been going on. If you've made it this far, I don't know, I always say that at the end, but I feel like, man, about halfway through, some people have got to tune it out. But if you're here, a huge thank you to everyone that's listening. Be sure, if you're not already, jump on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, whatever it is, wherever you're listening, and make sure you subscribe. Leave us a rating. The ratings really help us, and if you leave a review of the podcast, that's super helpful too. Where can the folks find you on the interwebs?
I had a website and I just shut it down. So,
okay.
Just Cobalt Customs on Instagram.
Right on.
And then I have a Facebook group.
Right on.
But you have to be invited to come in there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Invitation only. So definitely give them a follow on Instagram. Join the, I don't even know what your follower count is at right now. It's huge.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
But no, so okay, one last point. I know I was trying to close it out, but this is an interesting point. You were talking about advertising and doing everything right. One thing I also have to commend you on, from someone that's not a maker, but I'm into, digital media, marketing and all of that stuff. That's kind of what I do at my day job. To see, to your point, earlier when you were talking about working on your own, you said, you have to do it all.
Right.
I see these makers with these huge followings and these great clients, these great customers that love their work. And it's not just a knife maker putting out really cool stuff. It's someone that's kind of gotten it all figured out, that can manage a social media presence and engage and post. And, like Colin, I see him posting stuff on his story.
Right.
And there's some makers that don't do that, but I think the ones that really get the most traction have found that good balance between, not only do I have to put out a good product, but I've also got to represent a brand.
Right.
So not that it's worth anything, but huge props for that, because it's an insanely difficult thing to do. So I love seeing these makers with this great following where they're actually engaged and they're managing that. So anyways, so that's all I've got. Be sure to subscribe. Definitely check out the next episode. I've got at least 4 more makers lined up. So I think I'm at 6 right now. Still waiting on a response from a couple of folks. But yeah, these are going to kind of be in between all of the normal in quotes episodes with April and myself. So be sure to subscribe to check them out, and check out gtdone.com if you want to read up on any of the other makers that I featured in the original Maker series. Right now I'm working on number 10, so you can check out 1 through 9. Number 10 will be Casey Lynch, and he will be featured probably about a couple weeks, like mid-February or so. So definitely check that out. Thank you again for listening, and have a good one. Goodbye.